to survive? Hi, it's Doug. Today, I want to tell you a true story. On a late November day in 2012, a fisherman named Jose Alvarenga set sail in his fishing boat off the coast of Mexico. For him, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He expected to go out and cast his fishing nets and bring in a good catch for the day, which he would sell at market. That was how he made his living. But Jose Alvarenga didn't realize that things weren't going to be ordinary that day. A storm was forming off the coast, and very soon he found himself stuck in the middle of it. His luck got even worse. The storm thrashed his boat about violently, damaging the boat's motor and all of his electronics. He was only able to get in one call back to shore to yell for help, but no one responded, and Jose became lost at sea. During and after the storm, the boat drifted in the wind and was soon blown very far off course. After 2 days of searching, rescuers gave up. But he was still alive. Jose Alvarenga is the longest known survivor at sea. He drifted for over an entire year from Mexico all the way across the Pacific Ocean. Eventually, he found himself over here in the Marshall Islands in the South Pacific, where he finally was able to spot people and get help. How on earth did Jose Alvarenga survive a year at sea? Think if you were floating on a boat all alone with nothing. What problems would you face? What would you need to survive? Think if you were stranded at sea like this. What problems would you face? The biggest issue of all is food. You could actually starve to death. On average, a person can only go 3 weeks without eating. During the storm, Jose Alvarenga had lost most of the fish he'd caught, as well as his fishing supplies. Amazingly, though, he managed to find and catch ocean creatures with his bare hands. He didn't get to be picky about what he ate. That included things like jellyfish and sea turtles. What other problems would you face? Well, you might be thinking of sharks. Luckily, even though his ship was damaged, he still was able to stay on it. So the possibility of shark attack was very low. The biggest problem of all might surprise you: water, as in water to drink. Now, you might be thinking, what do you mean? There's no problem there. Like Jose, he's surrounded by an entire ocean of water. In every direction he looked, that's all he saw: water. But not all water's the same. There's actually different kinds of water. Ocean water is salt water, water that has salt in it, just like the salt you put on your food. Now, surprising as it may be, human beings and most land dwelling creatures actually cannot survive on salt water. After drinking more than just a few glasses, the salt that's in the water soon overwhelms the body. Despite the fact that it contains water, there's too much salt in it. Drinking salt water actually makes a person sick rather than helps them. Now, Jose was able to solve his water problem pretty easily. Every time it rained, he collected the rainwater using containers he had on board his ship. Rainwater, water that falls from the clouds, does not have salt in it. It's what we call fresh water. And that doesn't mean fresh as in new, just that it's plain water. It does not contain salt. So we need fresh water to survive, water that has no salt in it. This is the water we get from our faucets. Now, most of us cannot survive longer than 3 days without taking in enough fresh water. Hopefully, none of us will ever have to face such a difficult situation as Jose Alvarenga did. But imagine if water suddenly became something you did have to worry about finding. How would your life be different? Besides the fact that you can't survive longer than 3 days without fresh water to drink, what other ways do you depend on water in your life? Take a few moments and try to come up with as many ways as you can think of. So, what are all the ways you use water besides the fact that you need to drink it regularly? Well, for starters, maybe you're not someone who drinks just plain water a lot. And so the thought might have crossed your mind, I don't even drink that much water. I drink other things instead. Maybe you drink a lot of juice. But every drink we have, whether juice or tea or soda or coffee, all of these are actually mostly made of water. So you're getting water every time you drink something, regardless of your favorite beverage. How else do you use water, though? You may have thought about the fact that you bathe yourself to stay clean, whether a bath or a shower. That's a lot of water. And don't forget about brushing your teeth. Oh, and there's the toilet. Every time you flush, that's water. There are really important other ways you use fresh water, though, ways that are hidden to you. Did you think about your food itself? Think about everything you eat. Where does it come from? It's grown or it's raised on a farm. Every living thing you eat, whether plant or animal, needed fresh water to survive and grow. That's still water that you rely on, even though you didn't drink it directly yourself. Every day in the United States, the average American family uses not 1 gallon of water, but more than 60 gallons of fresh water. And again, that's every day. Having access to fresh water is something we take for granted. To us, it's as simple as turning on the faucet. And yet, it's so important to us. We rely on it in so many ways every day. You know, the ocean contains salt water, not fresh water, and that rain is fresh water. Where else is there fresh water, though, besides the rain? Now, you might know that lakes and rivers aren't salty, they contain fresh water. Maybe you also know that snow and ice aren't salty, so technically they're fresh water too, they're just frozen. Fresh water is so important to us. But how much fresh water is there in the world? You're going to find out in today's activity. In today's activity, you're going to figure out how much of the Earth's surface is covered with water and what kind of water it is. By that, I mean you'll look at how much area of the Earth is covered with liquid fresh water, like lakes and rivers, how much area is covered with frozen fresh water, like the ice at the North and South Poles, and how much area is covered with salt water, the water of the oceans. You'll use that information, that data, to make a graph that compares the areas covered by each. That'll let you see how good your guess was. Now, if you were to really add up the area of water for the entire planet, that might be a lot of work. But there is a way to simplify things. You can divide the world up into lots of smaller pieces. Let's zoom in on one of those pieces. This one shows the continent of North America. To simplify things even more, you can put a grid of squares on top of each piece of the map, like this. Why put squares on the map? Well, the squares can allow you to estimate how much area is covered by each kind of water. To make it easier to count a square as water or land, we did a little adjusting. So if a square was mostly water with just a little bit of land, we made that all water. And if a square was mostly land with a little bit of water, we made it all land. That creates a map that looks like this. I'm sure you can still recognize North America. Here's the US state of Florida. Here's the US state of Alaska. Here's the country of Mexico. Now, we did this to the whole world. and made the different types of water different shades of gray. By making the map all these nice square edges like this, you can see that makes it easier to estimate how many squares are freshwater, how many are frozen freshwater, and how many are saltwater. Okay, so get started. Each person will get one part of the map to count. Oh, and if you're working by yourself, that's no problem. You can count a couple of maps and then check the answer key to get the count for the other maps. All right, time to figure it out. To get started, follow along step by step. If you're in a class, find a partner. There are 18 maps to be counted, so if you have fewer than 18 people, or if you're working alone, you'll use my friend Pat's count for the other maps. When you're done with this step, click the arrow on the right. Students, get your supplies. The teacher or parent also needs stickers and the master checklist. Look at your map. Use the key on the page to find areas of freshwater, frozen freshwater, saltwater, and land. Do you have all four on your map? You want to know how many squares of each kind of water there are, but sometimes there are lots of squares to count. So, can you think of a clever math trick to help you count squares quickly? Discuss with your partner. Here's a trick we use at Mystery Science. We make the biggest rectangle we can, then calculate that rectangle's area by counting each side and multiplying them together. So for example, this side of the rectangle has 7 squares, and this side has 10 squares. If we multiply those numbers together, you get 70. So there are 70 squares total in this rectangle here. So I might make as many rectangles as I can, and then count the squares that weren't in the rectangles. You can use this trick, or you could just count every square. It's up to you. Go ahead and do questions 1, 2, and 3 now.